Yeah, well, we were talking gas prices earlier. They are really high across the country. They continue to soar. And more Canadians are starting to have the discussion about electric vehicles and perhaps turning to them as a solution.
I mean, I've spoken to some dealers, and some of them said, EV sales have gone up 30%, but for others, it's gone up 50 or 100%. So it really depends on.
So that is Daniel Britton. He's the Electric Mobility Canada's president, and he told CTV News the shift in interest is due to a combination of factors: rising gas prices from the war with Iran and the return of the federal EV rebates. So is this renewed interest a knee-jerk reaction, or has the shift to EVs returned? For a closer look this morning, and joining us from Vancouver is Jeremy Cato, award-winning automotive journalist. Great to have you on the show.
My pleasure.
So we just heard from Daniel Britton, who must be happy to offer that perspective, especially since last year EV sales dropped 35% compared to the year before. So with those factors we just mentioned, the war with Iran, the return of the rebates, and the introduction of cheaper models from China, how are sales looking this year?
Well, sales are still early on this whole China experiment. BYD is coming and others. But what we are seeing for sure is a real spike in searches for information about used EVs, new EVs, and an interest in what's going on in the marketplace regarding EVs. So what consumers are looking for is a way to, I don't want to sound like, a geopolitical risk expert, but that's what consumers are looking for. They're looking to mitigate geopolitical risk. And no business in the world is more integrated in terms of supply chain availability and reliance on oil and gasoline as the car business. So many consumers out there are looking for an alternative to look at an EV, or at least a hybrid, as insurance against more geopolitical risk. And by that, I mean the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. When we take a look at the longer picture of EV sales in Canada, there was that goal that was set out by the Trudeau Liberals that all new vehicles by 2030 were going to be electric vehicles. Big pushback on that, obviously, from the energy sector, but also from consumers who said the infrastructure, even the industry itself was saying the infrastructure is not in place in Canada. We've since walked that back. Everybody's talking about gas prices now. How has the overall attitude towards EVs in Canada shifted?
Yeah, well, consumers are recognizing that it's an alternative, but still pretty much an urban alternative in the big urban markets where there is solid EV infrastructure. Let me give you an example. I live in Vancouver, and last weekend I drove from Vancouver to Vernon, which is about 500 kilometers, about a 5.5-hour drive normally in a gas vehicle. I was driving an EV, a Ford Mach-E Mustang, as a test drive, and I've got a video coming out on that. But I had to stop 4 times to charge up because the drive from Vancouver at the coast to Vernon in the mountains is very, very hilly. So there is infrastructure there. I could stop in Merritt and Hope and all these other places. But the reality here is that the range is still a problem when you have hills, when you've got weather, the kinds of conditions that we live in, and it's not convenient. A couple of times I had to wait half an hour to charge up my Ford Mustang Mach-E. So it's not quite there. If you live in a city, however, you can charge at home, and that's where the financial benefit of owning an EV really is. If you're using a level 2 charger in your garage or in your carport, it really will save you. We're not talking a small amount of money. We're talking going from $500 to charge that vehicle using a basic level 2 charger in your garage to $3,300 to fuel up a vehicle today. And that's with fuel prices, gas prices at $1.80 a liter. So over 5 years, that's a $14,000 savings.
See, that is some really great math, but I'm going to ask you the question that I asked my friends and colleagues about EVs. When you factor in the overall costs of maintenance to your household budget, you are going to be paying more to charge your vehicle at home when you talk about utilities like electricity, hydro. So is it a benefit overall to your household budget? And if you are thinking of buying one right now, what do you need to consider?
Well, the budget piece is a tricky one because the upfront cost for an EV, let's go back to the Mustang comparison. Like the cheapest Ford Mach-E Mustang EV is around $46,000, $47,000, and the cheapest Ford EcoBoost version of the Mustang is about $41,000. So your upfront price is at least $5,000 or $6,000 more, usually much more than that because the transaction prices on EVs is a lot more. So your upfront cost is a big deal, but your maintenance cost and your running costs drop dramatically. So in an EV, you don't have to do an oil change. You don't have to. You're almost never going to have to do a brake job because of the braking system is aided by the electric motors charging the battery. That sort of thing. So your overall maintenance costs in an EV drop dramatically, and your running costs drop dramatically if you use the home charger. Now, if you start using public chargers, which can be 3-4 times as expensive for a level 3 charger versus your home charger, then some of that math fails off. So you really have to, this explains why a lot of consumers out there do not buy EVs. They lease them because they're taking the capital cost, the upfront cost down by reducing that, and you're only paying for the actual, the depreciation part of your vehicle. So leasing is the common solution for some of the budget issues that are out there.
Jeremy, you've added so much to a conversation that I know people across the country are having as we're sitting at an average of $1.82 a liter. Thanks for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.